of the Constitutional Court of Angola, Her Excellency Laurinda Cardoso. Chief Justice of the Constitutional Court of Azerbaijan, His Excellency Farhad Abdullayev. Chairman of the Constitutional Court of Kazakhstan, Her Excellency Elvira Azimova. Chief Justice of the Constitutional Court of Mongolia, His Excellency Chinbat Namgil. Chief Justice of the Constitutional Court of Namibia, His Excellency Peter Shivute. Chief Justice of the Constitutional Court of South Africa, His Excellency Raymond Miamezeli Mlungisi Zondo. Vice President of the Constitutional Court of Turkey, His Excellency Hasan Tahsin Gökçen. Justice of the Constitutional Court of the Kingdom of Thailand, His Excellency Chiranit Havanon. Permanent Secretary General of the Conference of the Constitutional Jurisdictions of Africa, His Excellency Moussa Laraba. Justices, former justices, distinguished guests, esteemed speakers, ladies and gentlemen, a very, very good afternoon and another warm welcome to the capital, Jakarta, Indonesia. We now welcome you to the International Chief Justice Forum, shining a light on strengthening democracy through constitutional jurisdictions, past, present, and future. This forum will serve as a platform to exchange and share thoughts, ideas, and constitutional practices across all participating nations. And this prestigious forum is also held on such a momentous day in conjunction with the 20 years commemorations of the Constitutional Court of the Republic of Indonesia, where we all bore witness to the solemnity of the proceeding earlier today. Excellencies, honorables, ladies and gentlemen, commencing our forum this afternoon, allow us to present to you a visual on how constitutions have made such a...
Located in the heart of Jakarta, the Constitutional Court of the Republic of Indonesia, carrying out its duties as the guardian of the Constitution, the guardian of democracy, the protector of human rights, and the guardian of states Pancasila. Even though it only has an office in Jakarta, with the support of technological advances, the court continues to effectively carrying out its functions for 280 million Indonesians spread across more than 17,000 islands, with hundreds of regional languages and ethnic groups. Now, with the number of experiences that we have, let's discuss. Let's exchange experiences on promoting the rule of law, safeguarding democracy and human rights for a better world.
Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for upholding institutions and across the archipelago of Indonesia. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we will now call the forum to order. Session 1 will focus on the theme, Evolving Role of Constitutional Jurisdictions in Upholding Democracy Throughout History. May we now call upon our speakers to take their seats at the head table, inviting From Algeria, the President of the Constitutional Court of Algeria, His Excellency Omar Belhaj. Kindly proceed to your seat. We now invite the Chairman of the Constitutional Court of Azerbaijan, His Excellency Farhad Abdullayev. May we now call upon Chairman of the Constitutional Court of Kazakhstan, Her Excellency Elvira Azimova. Please also kindly join us at the head table, Chief Justice of the Constitutional Court of South Africa, His Excellency Raymond Miamezeli Mlungisi Zondo. May we now request Deputy Presidents of the Constitutional Court of the Republic of Turkey, His Excellency Hasan Tahsin Gökçen. And also kindly proceed to the head table. May we invite Justice of the Constitutional Court of the Republic of Indonesia, Honorable Manahan MP Sitompul. Excellencies, delegates, ladies and gentlemen, allow me now to introduce our chairperson for Session 1. She was head of National Law Development Agency from 2014 to 2018 from the Ministry of Law and Human Rights of the Republic of Indonesia. She was also vice chairman of the Committee of Selections for the head of Indonesian Corruption Commissions. She is now our Justice of the Constitutional Court of the Republic of Indonesia since 2018. Professor Dr. Eni Nurbaningsih, SH M. Hum. May we invite you to take your seat. We now call the forum to order. Your Honor, please.
Terima kasih. Thank you very much, Master Ceremony. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon. May peace be upon us all. I would like to say also a warm welcome to Jakarta, to the Honorable Chief Justice and Justices of Constitutional Court and equivalent institution, ladies and gentlemen. It is truly an honor for me to be here as the chairperson for the first session of the International Chief Justice Forum. The theme for this session, the evolving role of constitutional jurisdiction in upholding democracy throughout history, explores how constitutional court in many countries play a central role as the guardian of the constitution and democracy. Through this dialogue, we can enrich our understanding of the evolving role of constitutional jurisdiction in safeguarding democracy throughout history. Well, there will be 6 extraordinary panel of speakers in this session, and every speaker will have only 10 minutes for their presentation. After all the speakers have delivered their presentation, I hope we will have 25 minutes for question and answer session. Our first speaker, Mr. Omar Belhaj, the President of the Constitutional Court of Algeria, will discuss the historical journey of strengthening democracy through constitutional jurisdiction, past, present, and future. His insights will trace the evolution of constitutional court as vital institution in preserving democratic values. Following him, we have Mr. Fahad Abdullayev, Chairman of the Constitutional Court of the Republic of Azerbaijan, who will present the evolving role of constitutional jurisdiction in upholding democracy throughout history. His perspective gives us an understanding of how constitutional courts have adapted throughout history. And the next speaker is Mrs. Elvira Azimora, Chairman of the Constitutional Court of the Republic of Kazakhstan. She will giving a presentation emphasizes the significance of the rule of law in achieving lasting peace and security. And the fourth speaker, Mr. Raymond Menmezeli Mlongisi Zondo, Chief Justice of the South African Constitutional Court. And the fifth speaker, Mr. Hassan Taksin Gökçen, Deputy President of the Constitutional Court of Turkey, will explain the importance of constitutional justice in strengthening democracy and the role of the Turkish Constitutional Court in the case of Turkey. His perspective will show us the role of the Turkish Constitutional Court in the broader global context. Last but not least, Justice Manahan, Mr. MP Sitompul, my colleague from Indonesia. He will shed light on strengthening democracy through constitutional court interpretation in protecting citizen constitutional rights and human rights. His insight will give us understanding regarding the protection of citizen constitutional rights in the context of constitutional jurisprudence. Ladies and gentlemen, I now invite the first speaker, His Excellency Mr. Omar Belhaj, the President of the Constitutional Court of Algeria, to deliver your presentation. Time is yours, please.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In the name of Allah, the most merciful and most beneficent, prayers and peace be upon the most honorable prophets and messengers, our Master Muhammad. Your Excellency, I am Anwar Usman, the President of the Constitutional Court of Indonesia, my colleagues, presidents, and justices of the constitutional courts and councils of the equal institutions, ladies and gentlemen, it is a pleasure to be with you today to participate in the works of the International Conference of Chiefs of Courts on this occasion of the 20th anniversary of the establishment of the Constitutional Court of the Republic of Indonesia. At the outset, I would like to extend my sincere thanks and gratitude to my brother, Mr. Anwar Osman, the President of the Constitutional Court of the Republic of Indonesia, for the generous invitation I have received to attend and participate in the work of this international conference on December 5th and 6th, 2022, entitled The Right of Citizens to Access the Constitutional Justice in Light of Comparative Systems. On the occasion of the first anniversary of its inauguration, when we were honored the attendance and participation of the Constitutional Court of the Republic of Indonesia. This meeting was really an opportunity for us to meet different constitutional experiences, as well as to build and consolidate friendship ties with many courts and constitutional councils of different traditions, cultures, and judicial constitutional models. Ladies and gentlemen, the constitutional justice in Algeria knew two main stages during developments and political transformations in the country. The phase of Constitutional Council, which extended from the 1989 until the constitutional amendment of November 5th, 2020, the date of transition to the second phase of the establishment of the Constitutional Court. The establishment of the Algerian Constitutional Council for the first time in accordance with the Constitution of February 23rd, 1989, constitute a new political phase based on party pluralism and the principle of democratic organization, in charge of two main missions. One is ensuring the supremacy of Constitution and respect through overseeing the constitutionality of laws and the conformity of the rules of procedures of the People's National Assembly with the Constitution, as well as monitoring the proper conduct of the referendum processes, the election of the President of the Republic and of legislative elections, and announcing the final results of these processes. These were the main tasks that the Council has maintained according to the Constitution of November 28, 1996. With the introduction of the legislation through organic laws in the fields and areas defined by the Constitution, which they are subject, in addition to the rules of procedure of each of the two chambers of Parliament, to a prior mandatory control over its conformity with the Constitution by notification of the President of the Republic. Those also are jurisdiction preserved by the Constitutional Amendment of March 2016, with the approval of the first time in the history of constitutional justice in Algeria, the mechanism of the exception of unconstitutionality and the parliamentary notification system. Ladies and gentlemen, the constitutional justice in Algeria has contributed to the establishment and consolidation of principles of the separation of powers, particularly through ruling on the conformity of the organic laws and the rules of procedure of each of the two chambers of Parliament with the Constitution, which is considered due to the nature of the legal provisions, an opportunity to deliver a very important constitutional jurisprudence for the respect of the constitutional distribution of jurisdiction, the hierarchy of laws, the supremacy of the constitution, and the regulating the legislative processes for the maintenance of legal security. The Constitutional Council also played a significant role in protecting the people's will and respect for rules of democratic competition and a regular transfer of power through ensuring validity of the electoral processes, examining appeals in relation, and announcing its final results. Ladies and gentlemen, the transition from the Constitutional Council to the Constitutional Court is the result of a variety of circumstances and political experiences. The decision to establish the Constitutional Court is an integrated context, deep and comprehensive constitutional, political, and institutional reforms initiated by the President of the Republic, Mr. Abdelmajid Tebboune, immediately after his election in December 2019, when was its first step, the constitutional amendment, which was endorsed by the Algerian people in the referendum of the 1st November 2020, a new way based on rule of law and resilient and legitimate institutions and real separation of powers and balance between them, the respect for fundamental rights and freedoms, and reflecting the principles of genuine democratic governance. Constitutional justice, in the context of these reforms, has taken an important position, being the highest oversight institution in charge of ensuring the observance of the Constitution and its interpretation, regulating the conduct of institutions and work of public authorities, ruling on disputes that may arise among constitutional powers, with its wide jurisdictions in the field of oversight of constitutionality of laws and regulations and their conformity with the Constitution. What qualifies it to take a high position in the state institutional map that are designed to play a key role on the functioning of the constitutional institutions and authority to move forward a modern state building in which rights and freedoms are protected and institutions are preserved. Ladies and gentlemen, the Constitutional Court performs for the oversight of the constitutionality of laws many and wide jurisdictions that reflect an important role in safeguarding rights and freedoms and strengthen democratic practice, in addition to the prior mandatory control over the constitutionality of organic laws and rules of the procedure of each of the two chambers of the Parliament. The Constitutional Court rules on the conformity of treaties, laws, and regulations and conformity of laws and regulations with the international treaties that were ratified by Algeria. On top of that, we also and to build peace as well as to eradicate injustice and inequality, as well as protecting the civilians in the crisis and post-conflict, offering a new vision on rule of law country. Guterres stated that it should be based on a principle that of the interests of the people and dignity of appeal, and that all requirements for the subject of the process, such as deeds and enhancements, are not based on the principle of the access to law and equality before the law. When considering the appeals, the Constitutional Court is led by the principles that are most conducive to the authority of the Constitution and the right to appeal to each people and equality before the law. The Kazakh public has a great number of favorable views on the Constitutional Court. Only since the beginning of its establishment, the Constitutional Court has heard 4,000 cases, and during 27 years of its establishment, we review 140 cases, around 5 cases on average in 5 years. And the Constitutional Court, only for 7 months of their work, have considered 23 jobs, and about 20 of them have been studied step by step. This does not, so in other words, de facto, citizens can demand their rights, but at the same time, they're also protecting the rights of others. By appealing to the Constitutional Court, they are contributing to strengthening the rule of law. And in one of the decisions, the Constitutional Court ordered that the necessary requirement drawn in the resolution of the upper court were overturned to the decision of the Court of Appeal to the citizens of the Republic of Pakistan. If someone wants to adopt a kid, they need to actually attach molecular genetic examination, which actually limit the access to the rights, in particular of rights of citizens and protections of their rights. In addition, the court adopted the following decisions in part to the public service, the protection of children's rights and their needs, and the use of image of a person in the media. On the basis of the application of its work, the Constitutional Court will periodically direct the Parliament to address the state of constitutional law. This approach allows to legislate and to all subjects of government involved in norming process to study the system of changes and recommendations on the results of constitutional production. The question of the application of constitutional rights is the most important issues in all democratic constitutional states. Therefore, it is important that effective constitutional control is developed in the society. This can be done if we work together with all stakeholders, including the youth. Maintaining the focus of people-centered of the operation system, the use of potential and laws on places to prevent violations on other negative consensus. Such approach to constitutional controls are not guaranteed. And I hope that all of you are a success in your noble duties for the benefit of your country and your people.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Azimora, for your valuable contribution to our discussion. And the next speaker is Chief Justice of the South African Constitutional Court, Mr. Raymond Menzeli Mungisi Zondo. Time is yours, please, 10 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Chief Justice of the Republic of Indonesia, my fellow Chief Justices from various countries participating in this conference, and other justices, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Let me start off by expressing my appreciation to the Chief Justice of the Republic of Indonesia and his colleagues for inviting me to participate in this conference and for inviting me to say a few words on the subject that we are dealing with, namely the evolving role of constitutional jurisdictions in upholding democracy through history. I bring with me greetings from my colleagues in South Africa and want to take this opportunity to say to Chief Justice Usman and his colleagues, congratulations on your 20th anniversary. May you see many more years and continue your good work as the Constitutional Court of Indonesia. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to share with you the experiences of the Constitutional Court of South Africa in upholding, protecting, and defending the constitutional democracy of South Africa, because in essence, I believe that the topic, the evolving role of constitutional jurisdictions in upholding democracy through history, calls for an examination of the role of various constitutional courts in different countries in protecting, promoting, and defending jurisdiction. After all, our Constitutional Court was only created in 1994, and therefore there may not have been enough time for its role to evolve. But I'm going to share with you how it has defended the Constitution, protected our democracy, and promoted constitutionalism. And I propose to do this by looking at concrete cases that it has dealt with, where you can see or determine whether or not you agree that it has promoted, protected, and defended the Constitution of our country and its democracy. As I said just now, the Constitutional Court of South Africa was created in 1994, and together with the interim constitution of 1993, ushered in constitutional democracy. The courts, and in particular the Constitutional Court, is required in terms of the Constitution to be the guardian of our Constitution. It is the highest court that deals not only with constitutional matters as it used to be for many years, but now actually also is the highest court in all matters. In seeking to show how our Constitutional Court has strengthened and protected our democracy since its establishment, I would have loved to have had more time to share with you its many decisions. But within the time that is allowed, I've chosen a few cases which I will share with you and indicate in practical terms how our court has promoted and protected and defended our constitutional democracy. Not long after we attained our constitutional democracy, in 1999, when we were going to have the second general election, democratic election in South Africa, an issue arose whether or not prisoners were going to be allowed to vote. And because the Electoral Commission, which supervised or managed elections, could not give an undertaking that prisoners would be allowed to vote, certain prisoners brought an application in the High Court to vindicate their right to vote. The High Court dismissed the application on the basis that they were in prison because of their own conduct. If they had not committed the crimes that they had committed, they would not have been in prison, and therefore they would have been able to vote. Therefore, there was nothing unconstitutional if they were not allowed to vote. However, the Constitutional Court dealt with the appeal that arose from that matter, and the Constitutional Court protected the rights of prisoners to vote and held that Section 19 of the Constitution of South Africa, in conferring the right to vote on every citizen, did not qualify that right in any way by way of people who might be in prison. And therefore, it made an order which allowed more than 50,000 prisoners the opportunity to vote. About 10 years later, the Constitutional Court was faced with a similar situation when South Africa was going into its fourth general democratic election in 2009, because on that occasion, although it was no longer prisoners, but the Electoral Act of 1998 had decreed in Section 33(1)(e) that those citizens who would be out of the country on polling day would only be allowed to vote outside of the country if they fell into certain categories that were specified. But those who did not fall within those categories would not be allowed to vote. And people who fell outside of those categories, who would be outside of the country legitimately, felt aggrieved and approached the Constitutional Court for an order that they too would be entitled to vote. The Constitutional Court came to the rescue of all those people who would have been out of the country for one or other legitimate reason on polling day, and concluded that there was no legitimate governmental purpose that would be served by Section 33(1)(e) of our Electoral Act in excluding those other categories of people, and that therefore their right to vote would be infringed if they were not allowed to vote, and made an order to the effect that they should be allowed to vote. In dealing with that matter, Oregon J. said, and I quote, "The right to vote is symbolic to our citizenship," as Sachs J. declared. In entrenching the right of every citizen to vote, Section 19 of our Constitution affirms that symbolic value, but the right to vote and its exercise has a constitutional importance in addition to the symbolic value. The right to vote and the exercise of it is a crucial working part of our constitutional democracy, close quotes. Indeed, in the next few years, the Constitutional Court had to deal with a different issue, namely a failure to observe constitutional obligations by Parliament. And in one case, Mazibuko, Parliament's Programming Committee, which had the power to decide what would serve before the National Assembly, did not allow a motion of no confidence in the President to be processed to the National Assembly. And the opposition party approached the Constitutional Court for a relief. The Constitutional Court held that the Constitution, in allowing in Section 102 for a vote of no confidence, required that every member of Parliament who initiated a vote of no confidence should be allowed to have his or her vote of motion of confidence debated in Parliament. And in that way, the Program Committee could not block a motion of confidence of a member of Parliament or opposition party. Indeed, later on, the Constitutional Court was faced with another matter where the Public Protector of South Africa had investigated allegations of corruption involving the private residence of the President of South Africa at the time, and concluded that the President had benefited and his family have benefited from certain irregular security upgrades in his private residence, and ordered that for that reason the President should pay back a certain portion of the taxpayers' money that had been paid. But the President did not pay, and Parliament, which had the constitutional obligation to hold the President accountable in regard to this, did not hold the President accountable. Opposition parties then approached the Constitutional Court for an appropriate order in order to vindicate the rights of opposition parties. In this regard, the Constitutional Court held that the Parliament had failed in its constitutional obligation to hold the President accountable in not insisting that he should pay in accordance with the decision of the Public Protector. It not on the basis of what their party might have instructed them, because at that time the majority party made it quite clear that its members were required not to vote in support of the motion of no confidence. When the Speaker of Parliament refused to authorize a secret ballot for the motion of no confidence, the UDM approached the Constitutional Court and asked for the Constitutional Court to declare that the Speaker has the power to authorize that the ballot should be by way of a secret vote, which the Constitutional Court did, and the Speaker subsequently authorized that the ballot should be a secret one. But once again, the motion of no confidence was defeated. What the political parties were dealing with and what the Constitutional Court was called upon to deal with in regard to these matters, where the complaint was that Parliament had failed to observe its constitutional obligations, was that opposition parties sought to remove the President of the country by way of a motion of no confidence, but the majority party each time defeated those motions, and the opposition parties felt that the majority party was abusing its power and the fact that it has majority members in Parliament. Those were two of some of the cases where even Parliament was held by the Constitutional Court to have failed to carry out its constitutional obligation. But one which was also very important was a situation which arose subsequent to the case that I've just dealt with, in terms of which Section 89 of the Constitution required Parliament to have put in place a mechanism for the impeachment of a president, but had failed to do so. And when opposition parties wanted to use that mechanism, it was not there. Therefore, they approached the Constitutional Court and said Parliament had failed to carry out its constitutional obligation to put in place a mechanism for the removal or impeachment of a president. And the Constitutional Court held that indeed Parliament had failed to do so, and therefore ordered Parliament to amend its rules in order to make sure that there was such a mechanism. Two other cases that I need to share with you before I stop relate to the executive. Our Constitutional Court has not only held Parliament to its constitutional obligations, but it also has held the executive. In regard to the executive, two matters relate to the SADC tribunal, where in regard to a matter referred to as FIC, farmers whose farms had been expropriated in Zimbabwe and approached the SADC tribunal for relief because the SADC countries had created the SADC tribunal so that if there were complaints of human rights violations, citizens of these countries could approach the tribunal. When they approached that tribunal and got an order in their favor, and the government of Zimbabwe refused to comply with the order, they approached the High Court in Pretoria to enforce a court order that had been made against the government of Zimbabwe on the basis that if it was enforced, then they would use it to execute against property in South Africa belonging to the government of Zimbabwe. The Constitutional Court upheld the claim of the farmers and held that the SADC countries had, including South Africa, had entered into a protocol which gave access to justice to the citizens of these countries, including these farmers, and that they should have helped to ensure that the order of the tribunal was complied with. Subsequently, the heads of state of SADC entered into a protocol in terms of which they took away the jurisdiction of the tribunal that related to individual complaints. And the Law Society of South Africa brought an application in the Constitutional Court to say the conduct of the President of South Africa in signing that protocol, which sought to take away the jurisdiction of that tribunal to deal with complaints from citizens against governments, was unconstitutional because it sought to violate their right to justice. And the Constitutional Court upheld that complaint. Lastly, and perhaps one of the most important judgments of the Constitutional Court related to a former president of the Republic who defied a summons to appear before a commission, and subsequently the Constitutional Court made an order that he should appear before the commission, but he also defied that order. And the commission had to approach the Constitutional Court for contempt of court. And when that happened, there were groups of supporters of the former president who went public vowing that they would not allow him to be arrested and to be sent to jail, and that there would be blood, and that he was not going anywhere. The Constitutional Court of South Africa, even in the face of all those threats, considered the matter and concluded by majority that he was guilty of contempt and sentenced him to 15 months imprisonment.
From the point of view of Rousseau's theory of popular sovereignty and the general will, the election of rulers, which gives the impression of a seemingly smooth and ideal system. However, as a sociological reality, the general will often does not express the whole of society. In a representative democracy, elections are a means for the political majority in society to dominate political authority. The governance of the state by the will of the political majority is, of course, have the opportunity for political participation. Therefore, the existence of constitutional justice and constitutional court is of paramount importance for pluralist democracies. This political science insights have led to the evolution of majoritarian democracies into pluralist constitutional democracies. In today's modern democracies, the concept of a modern democratic regime refers to the pluralist democracies. Indeed, the judgment of the European Court of Human Rights, a judicial body of Council of Europe with 46 member states, often state that pluralism is the sine qua non for democracy. The pluralist democratic regimes, the fundamental rights of the opposition, and the prospect of coming to power in the future are guaranteed. In this respect, pluralist democracies must rigorously protect the principles of equality and non-discrimination, freedom of expression, and freedom of association in their rules and practices toward minorities and those with different views. The main functions of constitutional courts are to protect and pave the way for the improvement of fundamental rights, free elections, and democratic political and legal institutions such as the party system. In this way, the constitutional court served the protection and sustainability of pluralist democracy. In other words, it makes an important contribution to the protection of the rule of law, the main pillar of pluralist democracy and political pluralism. After this brief introduction on the contribution of constitutional justice to the sustainability of democracy, I would like to mention the contribution of the Turkish Constitutional Court to the understanding of pluralist democracy. The Republic of Turkey is defined in Article 2 of the Turkish Constitution as a democratic state governed by the rule of law. It is also defined as a liberal democracy in the preamble to the Constitution. Established in 1962, the Turkish Constitutional Court is the fourth constitutional court to be established in Europe after the Second World War. In its judgment, the court interprets the principle of the democratic state in the Constitution as a pluralist democracy. In numerous judgments on fundamental rights, the court has stated that the democratic regime envisaged by the Constitution is a pluralist democracy. The court also defines the concept of a democratic regime as a regime in which the rulers are chosen by the ruled through honest, free, and fair elections. It also states in its judgment that political parties is a sine qua non for democracy. The adoption of the individual application to the Constitutional Court of Turkey in 2012 has had a significant impact on the way the court interprets and applies concept to the protection of fundamental rights and constitutional democracy. I would like to mention a few judgments in this regard. According to the court, the protection of fundamental rights and freedom is an obligation of a democratic society. It is therefore the fundamental duty of a democratic state to protect and promote those rights and freedoms. In other words, the state must refrain from arbitrary interference with the exercise of rights and freedoms and must take measures necessary for the effective exercise of these rights and freedoms, including the specific measures to protect individuals against interference by others. In a case concerning the right to hold meeting and demonstration marches, the court stressed that this right guarantees the emergence, protection, and dissemination of different opinions, which are essential for the development of pluralist democracy. Similar judgment by the court have stated that the protection of freedom of expression and assembly is crucial to the development of democracies. According to the court, freedom of expression must be protected with the exception of racism, hate speech, and incitement to terrorism. In this way, social and political pluralism is underpinned by the free and peaceful expression of all views. Therefore, democracy cannot exist where freedom of expression is not properly protected. According to the court, in order to be compatible with the requirements of a democratic social order, the interference with fundamental rights and freedoms must meet a compelling social need and be proportionate. The role of Constitutional Court in the improvement and development of democracy can also be seen in its judgment on the right to be elected and to engage in political activity. From the court's point of view, these political rights are among the indispensable elements of a pluralist and participatory democracy. With regard to the right to elect and to be elected, the court is more sensitive to the protection of the freedom of expression of members of parliament. In this respect, the court has stated that the member of parliament enjoy greater constitutional protection through the institution of parliamentary immunity as they represent opinions, demands, and interests of the electorate in the political arena. The court ruled that the provision of the rules of procedures of the Grand National Assembly of Turkey, which provides disciplinary sanctions against members of parliament whose statements are contrary to the administrative structure of the Republic as defined in the Constitution, is unconstitutional. In this judgment, the court pointed out that in democratic states, members of parliament in particular must be free to defend any opinion in a peaceful manner, even if it is contrary to the majority opinion. In two recent judgments, the court found that the applicants who were members of parliament had the right to elect and to be elected violated by their arrest and subsequent conviction, notwithstanding their parliamentary immunity. Esteemed participants, although there are debates about the legitimacy of constitutional review from the perspective of majoritarianism, the pluralistic nature of constitutional democracies is generally accepted. As a result, constitutional justice and constitutional courts have become indispensable in pluralist democracies. The Turkish Constitutional Court also contributes to the development of a Turkish democracy through its judgment and interpretation within the constitutional system, which reflects the pluralist democratic approach. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Hasan Taksin Gokcan, for your valuable insights regarding the role of the Turkish Constitutional Court, the broader global context. Our final presentation of this session is my colleague, Dr. Manan Sitompul, Justice of the Indonesian Constitutional Court. Time is yours, 10 minutes. Tidak boleh lebih dari 10 menit ya Pak ya.
Thank you, Madam. His Excellencies, Chief Justices and Justices, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, all the participants of this Congress. The headline of my papers is Strengthening Democracy Through Constitutional Court Interpretation in Protecting Citizens' Constitutional Rights and Human Rights. The Constitutional Court, as the guardian of the Constitution and the democracy, has made fundamental changes in the constitutional system, including the context of realizing constitutional democracy. In its 20th year, the Constitutional Court has tried to organize Indonesia's democratic system toward a constitutional democratic state. Settlement of election disputes, regional head elections, and also review the constitutionality of laws are very influential authority in changing the democratic system in Indonesia. The presence of Constitutional Court not only enforce procedural justice, but also substantive justice, which is reflected in its decision. The constitutional rights of citizens guaranteed by the Constitutional have been protected in every decision taken by the Constitutional Court. The effort to protect and assure human rights in Indonesia have been made continuously and have been increasingly showing progress. The fundamental effort to protect and enforce human rights has been made by making amendments to the 1945 Constitution in 1999 up to 2002. The formulation of human rights in the Indonesian Constitution is very important, considering that human rights as a universal value has been fully integrated in the constitutional through constitutional amendments from 1999 to 2002. The promotion and protection of human rights in this context is interpreted only at the national level, but also at the global level. Why does the amendments 1945 Constitution comprehensively introduce the provisions of human rights protection enforcement? In general, the conclusion of human rights in the articles of Constitution in considered as a characteristic of a modern constitution, as well as a prerequisite to the development of foundation for constitutionalism. Constitution as an instrument to reach constitutionalism must include provision on control over political power and protection of human rights. On such basis, Constitution should not only acknowledge human rights, but also have to provide protection and guarantee for their fulfillment. Emphasis is given on this matter because the fundamental interest of every citizen is to have their rights as a human being and a citizen enforced and fulfilled. What is the difference between human rights and the constitutional rights of citizens? In my opinion, not only constitutional rights are human rights, although all human rights constitute the constitutional rights of citizens. In Indonesian context, constitutional rights are the rights provided for in the 1945 Constitution. It indicates that all citizens' rights provided for in 1945 Constitution fall into the category of constitutional rights which must be guaranteed and protected without any exception. In that case, how does the Constitutional Court place its role in protecting the constitutional rights of citizens? Under Article 24C, paragraph 1 of the 1945 Constitution, the Indonesian Constitutional Court have 4 types of authority and 1 constitutional obligation, namely, first, to conduct a review of laws against the 1945 Constitution. Second, to settle disputes on authority between state bodies, which authority is granted by the 1945 Constitution. Third, to decide the dissolution of a political party. And fourth, to settle disputes over the result of general election, and Constitutional Court is required to make decision based on the opinion of the People's Legislative Assembly about alleged violation by the President and or Vice President under the 1945 Constitution. Through such authority and obligation, the Indonesian Constitutional Court is principally established with the purpose of protecting the constitutional rights of citizens from the norms of laws contradictory to the Constitution. The review of law against the Constitutional conducted by the Constitutional Court may be either formally or materially performed in formal reviews if the petitioner successfully proves that the formation of law is contradictory to the 1945 Constitution, which consequently impairs his or her constitutional rights. It means that the entire law shall be declared to be contradictory to the 1945 Constitution and shall not have binding of legal force. The party which may submit a petition for review of a law against the Constitution in the party which considers that its constitutional right is impaired by the coming into effect of law, namely A, an individual Indonesian citizens, including a group sharing the same interest. B, a customary law, a community unit insofar as they are still in existence and in accordance with the development of community and the principle of the unitary state of the Republic of Indonesia governed by law. C, a public or private legal entity, or D, a state body. With respect to decision, it is stipulated in 1945 Constitution that the decision of the Constitutional Court shall be final, which means that there is no further legal remedies are available. The decision of the Constitutional Court shall also binding, and from its pronouncement in the decision pronouncement hearing open for public. All parties, both state administrators and community, are required to comply with and be subject to such decision. In addition to the authority to conduct a review of law against the Constitution, the role of the Constitutional Court in protecting the constitutional rights of citizens is also actually performed by virtue of the authority to settle disputes over the result of general election, either presidential or vice presidential general election, legislative general election, or regional head general election. By virtue of the aforementioned authority, the Constitutional Court safeguards the democracy by protecting the right of citizens to elect and or to be elected in a general election so as to be able to be granted in accordance with the principle and rule of democratic general election and assured under the 1945 Constitution. With the same framework, For safeguarding the democracy, the Constitutional Court also plays a role in the effort to equalize democracy and democracy. Indeed, the emphasis between democracy and democracy is different, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it cannot be equalized. Democracy is focused on political aspects in order to uphold people's sovereignty, while democracy is focused on legal aspects. In the process, democracy tends to be rebellious and anarchic due to the leniency resulting from the freedom given to citizens. Moreover, the freedom is often expressed through behavior which is not only contradictory to the law and democracy, but also jeopardizes the integration of the unitary state of Republic of Indonesia. In this context, by virtue of its authority, the Constitutional Court, as the body safeguarding the Constitution and democracy, equalizes the democracy and democracy. As the conclusion of this presentation, I would like to emphasize that the Indonesian Constitutional Court plays a role in recovering the constitutional rights of citizens violated by the coming into effect norms of law through the exercise of the authority to conduct a review of law against the Constitution. Furthermore, by virtue of such authority to conduct a review of law, the Constitutional Court is able to control the legislator so as to be prudent in the formation of law. It shall not violate and or disregard the obligation to provide protection to the constitutional rights of citizens. In addition, by virtue of the authority to settle disputes over the result of general election, the Constitutional Court plays a role in assuring and ensuring that the rights to elect and or the right to be elected as the constitutional rights of citizens are shielded from any form of manipulation and misappropriation detrimental to citizens. Likewise, the Constitutional Court plays a role in protecting the integrity of the unitary state of the Republic of Indonesia, namely protecting the democracy so as to be established in accordance with the 1945 Constitution. Hence, this is my presentation, and thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Manahan, for your valuable presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for us to engage in the question and answer session. But I couldn't fulfill my commitment before about the time.
Nggak ada suaranya.
There is no sound.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it is now time for us to engage in the question and answer session. But I couldn't fulfill my commitment before about the time for question and answer. Now we only have 5 minutes, not 20 minutes. Because the 6 extraordinary speakers shared to all of us the interesting, their valuable experiences. Now, participants who wish to question and kindly requested to state the name and institution. I invite the audience to ask questions. The floor is for you now. Any question for right, left, or the center? Yeah, the question come from the Justice from Indonesia, Pak Suhartoyo, please.
Ya, terima kasih Prof. Eni.
Thank you, Professor Eni.
To Chief Justice South of Africa, because I didn't find your paper, maybe I want to ask bit out of the context your presentation. I want to know about how to propose president and vice president candidate at there South of Africa. Whether have recruitment proposed by parties or conciliation parties, and also recruitment president resort also or not at there. Maybe enough. Thank you very much.
Yeah, time is yours.
Thank you, Chairperson. I'm not sure that I understood the question, but I'm going to say how I understood it, and please, if I misunderstood it, if the chair would allow, I would ask you to repeat. I understood you to ask the question whether the emotion of no confidence in the president is something that is brought by political parties or individual members. Did I get it right?
I think not by one, someone, by party or conciliation parties, combined parties. Okay, coalition parties.
Or coalition parties.
Okay.
But is the question about motion of no confidence or just separate about coalition parties?
Propose untuk mengusulkan.
Proportional representation.
No. The question is about the election of president, the nomination of the candidates of president. The nomination of the candidates of president.
Okay.
Parties or council?
Who nominate the candidates? Party or coalition of parties?
Thank you very much. No, in terms of our constitution, although the people, the voters generally, currently vote for political parties and not individuals, the president is elected by members of parliament. And any member of parliament, when the parliament comes together for the first time after a general election, can propose or nominate any member of parliament as president. And if he or she receives enough votes, that person becomes president. But in practice, even though sometimes opposition parties or smaller parties do nominate somebody, but ultimately the one who gets to be president would be somebody nominated by the majority party in parliament. But an individual nominates. Thank you. I hope that clarifies it.
Cukup, Pak?
Ya, cukup. Terima kasih.
That's enough. Thank you very much.
One question? Any question more? Okay. No question from right, left, and center. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the end of the first session of the International Chief Justice Forum. Thank you to our great speakers for their informative presentations, and to all the participants who have been actively involved in this dialogue, although only once here. Let us continue to collaborate and advance constitutional justice and democracy together. Thank you very much for your kind attention. Please give applause for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, for for helping us navigate through the first session of today's forum. We also thank our esteemed speakers for your insights. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, we will now take a short break to allow you time to enjoy coffee and tea as well as Indonesian delicacies already served at your table. Kindly be informed that session 2 of our forum will resume in 15 minutes. Please enjoy your break.
Dear world, how are you today? Dear democracy, how are you today? Every day, people are busy with their own life. Today, we gather in Jakarta, the capital city of Indonesia, center for economic growth, social development, and acculturations of diverse culture. Located in the heart of Jakarta, the Constitutional Court of the Republic of Indonesia, carrying out its duties as the guardian of the Constitution, the guardian of democracy, the protector of human rights, and the guardian of state ideology, which is Pancasila. Even though it only has an office in Jakarta, with the support of technological advances, the court continues to effectively carrying out its functions for 280 million Indonesians spread across more than 17,000 islands, with hundreds of regional languages and ethnic groups. Now, with the number of experiences that we have, let's discuss. Let's exchange experiences on promoting the rule of law, safeguarding democracy, and human rights for a better world. Dear world, how are you today? Dear democracy, how are you today? Every day, people are busy with their own life. Today, we gather in Jakarta, the capital city of Indonesia, center for economic growth, social development, and acculturations of diverse culture. Located in the heart of Jakarta, the Constitutional Court of the Republic of Indonesia, carrying out its duties as the guardian of the Constitution, the guardian of democracy, the protector of human rights, and the guardian of state ideology, which is Pancasila. Even though it only has an office in Jakarta, with the support of technological advances, the court continues to effectively carrying out its functions for 280 million Indonesian spread across more than 17,000 islands with hundreds of regional languages and ethnic groups. Now, with the number of experiences that we have, let's discuss. Let's exchange experiences on promoting the rule of law, safeguarding democracy and human rights for a better world. Dear world, how are you today? Dear democracy, how are you today? Every day, people are busy with their own life. Today, we gather in Jakarta, the capital city of Indonesia, center for economic growth, social development, and acculturations of diverse culture. Located in the heart of Jakarta, the Constitutional Court of the Republic of Indonesia, carrying out its duties as the guardian of the Constitution, the guardian of democracy, the protector of human rights, and the guardian of state ideology, which is Pancasila. Even though it only has an office in Jakarta, with the support of technological advances, the court continues to effectively carrying out its functions for 280 million Indonesian spread across more than 17,000 islands with hundreds of regional languages and ethnic groups. Now, with the number of experiences that we have, let's discuss. Let's exchange experiences on promoting the rule of law, safeguarding democracy and human rights for a better world.
Hati tertarik, gerak-gerik si tukang kendang, sambil menari jongkok berdiri, semua orang padu turut gembira menurut suara irama gambang. Empat penari kian kemari, jalan berlenggang aduh, sungguh jenaka tari mereka, gambang Semarang. Sambil menari jongkok berdiri, semua orang aduh turut gembira menurut suara irama gambang. Bersukaria gelak tertawa, semua orang sayang. Hati tertarik gerak-gerik si tukang kendang, sambil menari jongkok berdiri, semua orang aduh turut gembira menurut suara irama gambang.
Excellencies, delegates, ladies and gentlemen, your attention please. Session 2 will begin in just a few minutes. May we invite our delegates and participants outside to kindly return to the ballroom and be seated. Once again, inviting our delegates outside to kindly return to the ballroom and take your seats. Our next session will begin momentarily. Thank you.
Cik cik.
stasiun balapan Solo.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, once again, we are calling upon our delegates and participants who might still be outside. If you can hear me, kindly return to the ballroom and take your seats. In just a few moments, session 2 will begin. Once again, inviting our participants and delegate to kindly take your seats as we're about to continue with the next part of our forum. Thank you very much. Excellencies, delegates, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the International Chief Justice Forum here in Jakarta, Indonesia. We sure hope that the break has rejuvenated and refreshed you all to embark upon the next part of our forum. We have now arrived to session 2 of the forum, shining a light on the theme Current Challenges and Future Direction for Strengthening Democracy Through Constitutional Jurisdiction. May we now kindly invite our esteemed speakers to take their seats at the head table, inviting Chief Justice of the Constitutional Court of Mongolia, His Excellency Chinbat Namgil. Also inviting President of the Constitutional Court of Angola, His Excellency Laurinda Cardoso. May we now request to the head table Justice of the Constitutional Court of the Kingdom of Thailand, Honorable Mr. Chiranit Havanond. Also inviting to proceed to the head table Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Namibia, His Excellency Mr. Peter Shivute. And last, but definitely not least, our Honorable Justice from the Constitutional Court of the Republic of Indonesia, Honorable and His Excellency Mr. Suhartoyo. Excellencies, delegates, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce to you our chairperson of Session 2. He was the Director General of Legislation from the Ministry of Law and Human Rights of the Republic of Indonesia for the period of 2010 to 2014. He is currently lecturer on legislation studies, faculties of Sharia and Law, State Islamic University of Sharif Hidayatullah, Jakarta, and also a lecturer on legislation studies, faculty of Law of University of Muhammadiyah, Jakarta. He is our very own Honorable Justice at the Constitutional Court of the Republic of Indonesia for 2014 to 2019, and now from 2019 to 2024. Our chairperson for Session 2, Dr. Wahiduddin Adams, SH.MA. Kami silakan. Excellencies, delegates, ladies and gentlemen, we shall now call Session 2 to order. Your Honor, the floor is yours.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, Honorable Chief Justice, Presidents and Judges of the Constitutional Court, Excellencies from neighboring countries, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Indonesian Constitutional Court, allow me to welcome you in our capital city, Jakarta, Indonesia. Allow me also to extend our gratitude for your willingness to accept our invitation to attend this forum in commemoration of the 20th anniversary of the Indonesian Constitutional Court. In accordance to our forum agenda, we already in our second session of the forum. Allow me to lead this session by firstly introducing the speakers to the forum. The first speaker is Chief Justice of the Constitutional Court of Mongolia, Honorable Justice Chinbat Namjil. Our second speaker is the President of Anjolan Constitutional Court, Honorable Justice Laurinda Cardoso. And for the third speaker is Justice of the Constitutional Court of Thailand, Honorable Justice Siranit Havanon. As for speaker is Chief Justice of the Constitutional Court of Namibia, Honorable Justice Peter Sivate. And the last speaker to the forum is my colleague from Indonesian Constitutional Court, Honorable Justice Suhartoyo. The topic raised in the second session is our current challenges and future directions to strengthen democracy through the court that held the constitutional jurisdiction. The speakers at this session will share experiences in their respective jurisdiction. Before I invite Chief Justice Mr. Chinbat Namjil from Mongolia to comment sharing his experiences, allow me to remind the speakers that we are constrained by the scheduled agenda. In accordance with program, the session will have to be ended at 5 o'clock. This session alone will be divided into parts. First is presentation from the 5 speakers, then followed by discussion, question, and answer. Given that we have 5 panelists, allow me to limit the time for each speaker the 10 minutes. This is our consensus. Therefore, I hope that each speakers will use their time limitation wisely. To our peace speaker, Chief Justice of the Constitutional Court of Mongolia, Honorable Justice Chinbat Namjil. Please.
Your Excellency, Chair of the session, distinguished Presidents, Chairmen, and Chief Justices of the Constitutional Courts, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, on behalf of the esteemed Constitutional Court of Mongolia, I would like to extend my sincere greetings to the host of this forum, the Constitutional Court of Indonesia, and all distinguished speakers and guests. I am pleased to express my confidence that this forum will be as fruitful and successful as the previous events. Today, I will briefly introduce you to Mongolia's experience in ensuring the principle of democracy guaranteed by the Constitution of Mongolia and how it has been protected by the Constitutional Court of Mongolia. The Constitution is not only the supreme law of a country, but also the law that guides the future direction of the country's development. Democratic ideology is the main idea of the most developed and developing countries, and basic guarantees of human rights and freedoms already has been recognized as the main trend of development. In Mongolia, on November 26, 1924, the first State Great Khural Parliament unanimously adopted the first constitution of the People's Republic of Mongolia, which stated, "From now, the whole Mongolia will be People's Republic with full rights, in which the whole power belongs to the people. The people exercise their supreme power through the Great Khural of all the people and the government elected by the latter." Mongolia proclaimed the People's Republic of Mongolia. In the history of Mongolia, since adopting the first constitution in 1924, Mongolia has adopted new constitutions 3 times in 1940, 1960, and 1992. 1924, 1940, and 1960s constitutions have followed the guidance of socialist ideologies, whereas the 1992 constitution aligned with liberal democratic ideas. above-mentioned socialist constitutions have some differences, but all these socialist constitutions share such socialist features as one-party rule, centralized government, party-centered development goals, emphasis on party programs and ideology, class consciousness, and the restriction of human rights. Researchers noted that under 70 years, socialist constitutions have independence and unprecedented social and cultural achievements in Mongolia. But on the other hand, the development of Mongolia's economy had fallen into a deadlock, including the formation of a totalitarian regime. The long amendments to the Constitution of the People's Republic of Mongolia, which was adopted on May 10, 1990, has a very important role in the democratic process starting. However, this law didn't completely repeal the Constitution of 1960. It was declared necessary conditions for the transition to democracy at the constitutional level. Consequently, the fourth constitution, democratic new constitution in Mongolian history, was adopted on January 13, 1992. For the first time, Mongolia enshrined in the constitution the ideas of human rights, democratic politics, pluralism, a free economy, separation of powers and checks and balances, local self-government, independent judicial power, and constitutional review. The preamble of the Constitution proclaims that, inspiring toward the supreme objective of building humane, civil, and democratic society in the country. Also, the second paragraph of the first article Constitution of Mongolia stated that the fundamental purpose of state activity is the assurance of democracy, justice, freedom, equality, and national unity and respect of law. Democracy is the manifestation of individual autonomy already embedded within the concept of human rights, especially regarding social activity, political rights and liberties. Specifically, rights and freedoms such as voting, being elected, searching for information, petitioning, and complaining to government officials, associations, and demonstrations can be mentioned here. Thus, in each chapter of the Constitution, many provisions are included that embody the content of the principle. For example, Article 3 of the Constitution of Mongolia says, "State power is vested in the people of Mongolia. The people exercise it through direct participation in state affairs and through representative bodies of state power elected by them. Illegal seizure of state power or attempted seizure is prohibited." Furthermore, Article 16.9 provides for the right to take part in the government of the country directly or through representative bodies. The right to elect and to be elected to state bodies, Article 16, provides that on the basis of social and personal interests and opinions, citizens have the freedom of association in political parties or other voluntary organizations. No one should be discriminated against and persecuted due to his or her participation in a political party or a mass organization. Article 16.11 stipulates that men and women enjoy equal rights in political, economic, social, and cultural fields, as well as in marriage. Article 16.12 stipulates that citizens have the right to submit a petition or a complaint to state bodies and officials. The state bodies and officials are obliged to respond to the petitions or complaints of citizens in conformity with the law. Article 16.13 provides for the right to personal liberty and safety. No one may be searched, arrested, detained, persecuted, or restricted of liberty save in accordance with procedures and on grounds determined by law. No one may be subject to torture, inhumane, cruel, and degrading treatment. Article 16.16 stipulates that citizens have the freedom to thought, opinion, expression, speech, press, and peaceful assembly. Procedures for organizing demonstrations and other assemblies are determined by law. This way strengthened the values of democracy. Globally, the role of the Constitutional Court in the formation of constitutionalism is very high, and it is not only a measure of the rule of the law of state authorities and officials, but also a guarantor of the formation and development of constitutionalism. Consolidation of democracy does not only come from the codification of the Constitution and laws, but also from the designated institutions of constitutional oversight. The highest form of such a mechanism in domestic law is the Constitutional Court. The Mongolian Constitutional Court was established to constrain state actions and to build up a body of constitutional law based on democratic values and human rights protection. Article 64 of the Constitution of Mongolia provides that the Mongolian Constitutional Court exercises supreme supervision over the implementation of the Constitution, making judgments on the violation of its provisions and resolving constitutional disputes. The Constitutional Court is the guarantee for the strict observance of the Constitution. About that, the law of Mongolia on the Constitutional Court provides that court shall exercise its supreme supervision over the implementation of the Constitution through rendering conclusions on the disputes specified in this article and through settling disputes specified in the second clause of this article. For example, the Constitutional Court of Mongolia has jurisdiction over constitutional review. It resolves disputes about the constitutionality of laws, decrees, and other decisions by the Parliament and the President, as well as decisions of the government, international treaties signed by Mongolia, national referendums, and decisions of the Central Election Authority on the elections, has the right to annul it if it is found to be inconsistent with the Constitution after reviewing the dispute. Also, the Constitutional Court of Mongolia has jurisdictions over whether high-ranking government officials such as the President, Chairman of the Parliament, its members, Prime Minister, Cabinet Member, Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, and the Prosecutor General have violated the Constitution and to make a conclusion on their dismissal or recall. The Constitution of 1992, which is followed today, is called the Democratic Constitution. Therefore, the jurisprudence of the Mongolian Constitutional Court greatly contributes to the constitution of a democratic legal system, directly and indirectly related to the strengthening of the principles of democracy. Since its establishment, the Constitutional Court has made great achievements in declaring challenged acts unconstitutional, protecting democratic principles and human rights, and building a humane, civil, and democratic society. As soon as the decision of the Constitutional Court of Mongolia is issued, it becomes effective and binding, so it has a direct impact on the lives and politics of citizens. Many important decisions were made that show that any government and organization should conduct its activities in accordance with the principles of democracy. In this way, it should be noted that the decisions made by the Constitutional Court of Mongolia are not only of special importance in preventing violations of the Constitution, but also have a real impact on the development of democracy. Finally, to conclude, the role of Constitutional Court is important in protecting the Constitution, democratic values and principles, and human rights. I'm pleased to note that also the Constitutional Court of Mongolia protects the values of the democratic constitution and has a special influence on its development. I wish you success in your future endeavors and thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Honorable Chief Justice, Mr. Timbat Namjib of the Mongolian Constitutional Court, for sharing your expertise and knowledge. And without further ado, I would like to invite the second speaker, President of the Angolan Constitutional Court, Honorable Justice Laurinda Cardoso, to start his presentation. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Your Excellencies, dear colleagues and distinguished participants, first of all, I would like to present our gratitude to those who took part of the organization of this great event, especially the Chief Justice of Constitutional Court of Indonesia, Professor Dr. Anwar Osman, for the invitation and consideration. Thank you, dear colleague. Our thanks are extended to the Indonesian people in general, and especially to the people of the city of Jakarta for their kind and welcoming reception in this beautiful city. For us, it is an honor to be here. According to the panel theme, and following the dynamic that the event establishes, I would like to share with your Excellencies brief notes on our experience as Constitutional Court, the guardian of the Constitution of the Republic of Angola. An approach about current challenges and future direction for strengthening democracy through constitutional jurisdiction also represents today one of the most discussed topics in the field of constitutional justice. It motivated certain different opinions that have not found unanimity yet. The Constitutional Court in Angola, as it appears today, was institutionalized in June 2008. And so, this year, we are celebrating our 50th anniversary, with major challenges ahead, with a view to its affirmation as guardian of the Constitution of the Republic, with emphasis on strengthening the mechanism for defense of fundamental rights. The first note I would like to share with your Excellencies is regarding the inquiry on a normative act of the legislative power. It is recognized that the normative act of legislative power, which are the act practiced by the oath representatives of the Angolan people, our National Assembly, are subject to examination through constitutionality review, aiming the consolidation of the democratic state and the rule of law. The Angolan legal system, as in many modern legal systems, the principle of supremacy of the Constitution is enshrined in the Article 6 of our Magna Charta. The principle of the supremacy of the Constitution, which has its consequence the idea of constitutionality provided by the Article 226 of our Constitution, justify that act of the state, more specifically of a normative nature, are subject to review by the Constitutional Court. In order to guarantee that the normative act of legislative power may be subject to scrutiny by the Constitutional Court, the Constitution of the Republic of Angola provides that acts in question are scrutinized through abstract constitutional review, which may be preventive or successive. Regarding the preventive abstract review process, the Article 228 of our Constitution, as well the Article 20 of the Constitutional Procedure Law, establish that it applies to any legal instrument that has been submitted for promulgation or an international treaty submitted for ratification or an international agreement submitted for signature. As for the successive abstract review, this is applied to any rule published in the official gazette. The declaration of inconstitutionality shall have general binding force and shall take effect from the date of entry into force of the rule declared unconstitutional and determine the re-acting of the rule revoked through this scope may be more restricted when the legal certainty, reason of equity, or public interest of exceptional relevance require it. The second note is regarding rationale and the need for control instrument. As noted above, the concept of majority voting should not and cannot be evoked as barrier to constitutional jurisdiction. Constitutional court must be guided by a democracy capable to restricting politicized decisions through constitutional control. There is a permanent bond, often overlooked by the purely formal conceptions of democracy, between political democracy and those constitutional established by fundamental rights, which operates as content limits for restriction on the absolute will of the majorities. Indeed, the will of the electorate can only be expressed authentically when it is freely expressed, and it can be only freely expressed if each and everyone is guaranteed the exercise of fundamental freedoms in addition to the right to vote, freedom for truth, freedom of press, freedom of information, freedom of assembly, and freedom of association. Therefore, the Constitutional Court has the role of the judging and the legislative if a legislative act of the Parliament corresponds to what is called the higher general will. It was upon this conception that the Angolan Constitutional Court on 2021, in a preventive review of constitutional review law, declared all through judgment number 688/2021 unconstitutional the article that stated the obligation of the Constitutional Court and other body with special jurisdiction to send annual report on its activities to the President of Republic and the National Assembly for knowledge, as it infringed the principle of separation of power established in our Constitution. Lately, doctrine and case law have attempted to confirm the fact defended by the Italian case law since the 1960s, the existence in various legal systems of manipulative judgment or intermediate sentence. In the same direction, the Angolan Constitutional Court, in the successive abstract review requested by the Angolan Association Bar on December 2020, integrated through judgment number 658/2020, the intermediate on all manipulative decision has its case law in the moment of the Constitutional Court fixed the effect of the decision, having conditional its effectiveness to the verification of the condition for its materialization. To conclude, I would like to reiterate that the Angolan constitutional system is characterized by the committed constitutional jurisdiction with a healthy relationship with the Parliament. In major decisions, where the value, principles, and fundamental rights are under consideration, the Constitutional Court has the last word, and its role has not only been limited to the enforcement of the right, but also to ensuring that the construction of the law takes place under the legitimate condition of deliberative policies. As Kelson stated, in the absence of the organization such as the Constitutional Court, the legislator will have the final word on whether the conditions have been satisfied, and the principle of constitutional legality will remain essentially ineffective. Thank you for your audience.
Thank you. We thank the President of the Angolan Constitutional Court, Honorable Justice Laurinda Cardoso. From Africa, we turn to Asia. This time is from Thailand. Justice Siranit Havanon will share this experience. Please, the floor is yours.
Presidents, Chief Justices of the Constitutional Court, and distinguished participants, since the Siamese Revolution in 1932, of which the form of government has been transformed from absolute monarchy to constitutional monarchy, a democratic regime of government with the king as head of state, Thailand has modified and developed various constitutionality review systems. At first stage, the Constitution of the Kingdom of Siam 1932 granted the House of Representatives the absolute authority of constitutional interpretation. Later, in 1946, in the judgment of number 1/2489, the Supreme Court rules that the provision retrospectively criminalization the Cabinet's action of allying the countries with Japan and declaring war on the alliance during the World War II was unconstitutional and declared it void. There was a controversy afterward between the legislative body and the judiciary over which body had the power of constitutionality review. At the second stage, the Constitution of the Kingdom of Thailand 1946 therefore granted the Parliament the absolute authority of constitutional interpretation and established the Constitutional Council entitled to do constitutionality review. At first stage, the Constitution of the Kingdom of Thailand 1991 granted the Constitutional Council the sole authority of constitutional interpretation. At the fourth stage, the Constitution of Kingdom of Thailand 1997 has since then established the Constitutional Court as a judicial body vested with the authority of constitutionality review. Moreover, the 1997 Constitution has assigned to the Constitutional Court the additional duty and power to protect the Constitution and democracy. First, the Constitutional Court has the power to decide whether an act constitutes an exercise of rights and liberties prescribed in the Constitution to overthrow the democratic regime of the government with the king as the head of state. The Constitutional Court in the ruling number 19/2021 ordered the respondents not to act or give speech that instigate the overthrow of the democratic regime of the government with the king as the head of state. Second, the Constitutional Court has the power to review constitutional amendment. So the legislative body cannot amend the Constitution in the way that changes the democratic regime of government with the king as the head of state or the form of state. In the ruling number 15 to 18, 2013 and number 1, 2014, the Constitutional Court rules the draft of Constitutional amend the structure of the Senate and the source of senators was unconstitutional because it amounts to an inhibition of characters and essential substance of the bicameral system of the parliament and was contrary to the principle of checks and balance. Also in the rule number 4, 2021, the Constitutional Court rules that the formulation of a new constitution by drafting a constitutional amendment would result to the repeal of the current constitution. If the National Assembly wished to draft a new constitution, a referendum must be held for the people to vote on whether or not there should be a new constitution. This case was originally debated with the legislature and subsequent sent to the Constitutional Court for judgment. Third, the Constitutional Court has the power to decide whether an act of state agencies or state official is a violation of people's rights and liberties recognized by the Constitution. In the ruling number 15, 2022, the Constitutional Court confirmed the duty of and the power of the Senate to approve judge of the Supreme Administrative Court. In conclusion, the role of the Constitutional Court of Thailand in protect democracy has been increasing, strengthened, and evident. The court has also been able to solve many problems or disagreements that the political sector may not be able to do so. Although sometimes not all parties are content with the ruling, the Constitutional Court has played a key role in securing democracy and ensuring that the constitutional organization would perform their duties and exercise their powers under the rule of law in order to protect the integrity of the jurisdiction and for the nation to thrive. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Justice Siranit Hafanon. And the annual information that we get from his presentation. Of course, it will be interesting if we can have some discussion, but we haven't come to the discussion part yet. There are still two more speakers that we will listen to. For the fourth speaker, I will invite the Chief Justice of the Constitutional Court of Namibia, Honorable Justice Peter Sifaut. Please, the first is yours.
Your Excellencies, Chief Justices, Excellencies, Justices of the Constitutional Court of the Republic of Indonesia, ladies and gentlemen, I'm greatly honored to have been invited to attend this International Chief Justices Forum and to address this esteemed and most crucial dialogue in this beautiful city of Jakarta, Indonesia. I'm equally honored to have been given this opportunity to contribute to the discussion where we take stock of the progress made, identify the challenges facing our respective jurisdictions, and share solutions towards reaching our collective goal of upholding constitutional democracy. Before I proceed, allow me to express my profound gratitude to the Constitutional Court of Indonesia for providing this platform. By the same token, I wish to acknowledge the excellent arrangements extended to me and my delegation. As always, the warmth and hospitality of the Indonesian people is unmatched. I also wish to congratulate the Constitutional Court of the Republic of Indonesia on its 20th anniversary. It's a privilege to witness the celebration of this milestone of the court's existence. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, our world is facing many challenges in ensuring strong and resilient democracies, and it is imperative that we contemplate the path ahead for strengthening democracy through constitutional jurisdictions. Today, I would like to share with you some insights and future directions that can pave the way for a more robust democratic framework. First and foremost, we must acknowledge the current challenges that our democracies face. One of the pressing challenges is the rise of populism, which often undermines the principles of constitutionalism and the rule of law. Populist movements tend to exploit people's fears and emotions, often leading to policies that are inconsistent with established constitutional rights and protections. As Chief Justices, it is our duty to safeguard the integrity of our constitutional frameworks and counter such tendencies with a steadfast commitment to upholding the principles of justice and equality. Another challenge we face is the preservation of fundamental rights in the digital age. The rapid advancements in technology have revolutionized the way we communicate and participate in democratic processes. However, they have also given rise to concerns over privacy, data protection, and the manipulation of information. As constitutional jurisdictions, we must adapt our legal frameworks to address these issues, ensuring that citizens' rights are protected without stifling technological innovation. Additionally, we cannot ignore the threats of corruption to democratic governance. Corruption erodes trust in public institutions and undermines the rule of law. It weakens the integrity of our constitutional jurisdictions and hampers the effective functioning of our democracies. As Chief Justices, we have a pivotal role to play in combating and preventing corruption, both through impartial adjudication of corruption cases and by championing transparency and accountability within our systems. Now, let us turn our attention to the future and the directions we can take to strengthen democracy through constitutional jurisdictions. One essential aspect is the promotion of an independent judiciary. It is imperative that we preserve judicial independence and protect judges from political or other undue pressure or interference. By ensuring an impartial judiciary, we can uphold the rule of law and guarantee the safeguard of constitutional rights for all our citizens, irrespective of their social or economic status. Furthermore, we must embrace technological advancements to enhance the accessibility and efficiency of our judicial systems. By adopting digital platforms and e-filing systems, we can improve access to justice for all citizens, including marginalized communities. It is vital that our court processes incorporate modern technologies, ensuring faster and more efficient dispute resolution mechanisms, while maintaining the highest standards of fairness and due process. Moreover, education and capacity building are crucial to strengthening constitutional jurisdictions. We must invest in ongoing professional development programs for judges, lawyers, and court staff to enhance their skills and knowledge of the importance of a nation's constitution. Additionally, educating citizens on their rights, the rule of law, and the significance of constitutional democracy can empower them to actively engage in the democratic processes and hold their governments accountable. Lastly, international cooperation among constitutional jurisdictions is vital for the advancement of democracy worldwide. By fostering collaboration and sharing best practices, we can promote global understanding of constitutionalism and contribute to the development of a stronger international legal framework. Through dialogues such as this one, we can learn from each other's experiences and consolidate our collective efforts in upholding democracy and the rule of law. In conclusion, Honorable Chief Justices, the challenges we face in safeguarding democracy through constitutional jurisdictions are immense. However, by addressing the rise of populism, protecting fundamental human rights in the digital age, combating corruption, upholding the judicial independence, leveraging technology, investing in education, and promoting international cooperation, we can navigate the current landscape and shape a future that strengthens democratic governance. Let us stand together, committed to ensuring that our constitutional jurisdictions remain steadfast in their pursuit of justice, equality, and the preservation of democratic ideals. I'm confident that with our collective efforts, a brighter and more robust future awaits us all. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Justice Peter Sipaut. We are to our last speaker in this second session. As the fifth speaker, I would like to invite my colleague, Honorable Justice Suhartoyo, to deliver his presentation. Justice Suhartoyo, the floor is yours. Silakan, monggo.
Iya, terima kasih. Thank you very much. The Honorable Waidudet Adams, Chief Person, my colleagues also. Good afternoon, my peace be upon us all. The Honorable Speakers and representatives of other foreign constitutional court, distinguished head guests and participants. The constitutional jurisdiction in Indonesia dramatically changed following the Reformation era and amendments to the 1945 Constitution. The dynamics of this change has indeed affected how judicial institutions play a role in safeguarding democratic principles. The Indonesian Constitutional Court has played a crucial role in strengthening democracy in Indonesia. The Constitutional Court was established in 2003 and has served as the country's highest authority on constitutional matters. Article 24 4G of the 1945 Constitution states that the Constitutional Court has the authority to adjudicate at the first and final instance the judgment of which is final, to review the constitutionality of laws, to pass judgment on any authority, disputes of state institutions whose authorities are granted by Constitution, the dissolution of a political party, and any challenges to the results of a general election. The Constitutional Court shall also render judgment on a petition of the People's Representatives Council regarding any alleged violation by President and or the Vice President according to the Constitution. Theoretically, the transition from authoritarian regime to democracy takes place over several phases. There are less four phases the Indonesian politics have supposedly undergone, namely pre-transition, liberalization, democratic transition, and democratic consolidation. The final stage of democracy or maturation is predicated to take place within a more extended period. Consolidation of democracy should be a process that unfolds various stages: the level of representation, the level of political institution, and the level of integrating potential veto powers. This process should be supplemented by the formation of democratic civil society whose concrete contribution towards democratizing a country is indispensable. Other groups of particular importance in this process include the elites, the hold governmental and political powers and functions, the business elites, and those leading elites of civil society who are friendly towards democracy. Ladies and gentlemen, the contribution of the Indonesian Constitutional Court to strengthen democracy can be seen in how the courts realize its authority. First, judicial reviews of law. The Indonesian Constitutional Court has the power to review and strike down laws and regulations. They are deemed unconstitutional. This mechanism ensures that the legislative branch does not exceed in constitutional limits and that laws are with fundamental rights and democratic principles. This notion can be traced back to the idea of balancing power among branches. The court acts as a check and balances on the powers on the executive and legislative branches of governments. By reviewing the constitutionality of their actions, the court helps prevent the abuse of power and promotes a system of check and balances. Secondly, in the protection of human rights, the court's decisions have often centered on protecting and upholding human rights, including freedom of speech, assembly, religion, and other civil liberties. By safeguarding these rights, the court help foster an environment of pluralism and tolerance essential for a thriving democracy. Thirdly, safeguarding the electoral process. The Indonesian Constitutional Court oversees election-related disputes, ensuring the fairness and integrity of Indonesian electoral process. This includes resolving election disputes and overseeing the conduct of general elections, presidential elections, parliamentary elections, and regional health elections. Fourthly, public accountability. The Indonesian Constitutional Court decisions are made publicly available, promoting transparency and allowing citizens to understand the legal reasoning behind the court's judgments. This enhances public trust in the judiciary and contributes to a more accountable government. Everyone can access to Indonesian Constitutional Court's decision through mkri.id after only a few hours of the decision hearing. Fifth, resolving political disputes. The Indonesian Constitutional Court serves as an independent and impartial forum for resolving political disputes, reducing the likelihood of political conflicts escalating into broader crises. Sixth, upholding the rule of law. The Constitutional Court's decisions are binding and set precedent for future cases, establishing a consistent application of the rule of law. This consistency fosters stability and predictability in the legal system, contributing to overall strength of Indonesian democracy. However, it is important to note that the effectiveness of any institution in strengthening democracy depends on various factors, including the political will of the government and the broader societal context. Ladies and gentlemen, in the era of functioning democracy, challenges arise when governments of powerful entities undermine the rule of law, leading to a lack of accountability and transparency. 3. Electoral integrity. Ensuring the integrity of election is fundamental for democracy. Challenges include electoral fraud, voter suppression, misinformation campaigns, and inadequate election law and regulations. For protecting human rights, democrats need to ensure the protection of human rights and individual freedoms. Challenges arise when there are attempts to curtail or infringe upon these rights, especially for minority groups. In order to realize the role of constitutional jurisdiction in strengthening democracy, here are some future steps to could be taken. 1. Strengthening judicial independence. Ensuring the independence of the judiciary is crucial for maintaining checks and balances in a democracy, in establishing robust mechanism to protect judges from political influence and initiation. 2. Electoral reform. Implementing electoral reform to extend transparency, fairness, and inclusivity can strengthen the democratic process. 3. Embracing technology. And 4. Promoting civil education. 5. Combating disinformation. And last, 6. Ensuring access to justice. Honorable Speaker and ladies and gentlemen, it has come in the of my speech in conclusion, we have seen that the Indonesian Constitutional Court had played a significant role in upholding democratic principles by realizing and implemented in its authority. However, the direction taken the future should be implemented synergistically with related stakeholders and the government to promote the roles of constitutional jurisdiction in safeguarding democratic principles. We have that forums such as this International Chief Justice Forum can be a means to exchange ideas, best practices, and various experience from any constitutional court and an equivalent institution in handling cases. eventually will be able to support the court's future task in upholding substantive justice and strengthening democracy. Thank you very much. More 2 minutes.
Thank you, Honorable Justice Suhartoyo, for sharing the experiences. And thank you to all speakers to shed some light in their efforts to strengthen the principles of democracy, the Constitutional Court. There is information that Morocco has submitted their paper. However, the court will not attend the forum. Ladies and gentlemen, every country has their own problems, but sometimes the diversity of problems is not unique and therefore completely different. There are always some commonalities from which we can share experiences to mimic and find the best way to solve problems. Each speaker has expressed and described their experience in each jurisdiction. From the translation that have been delivered, there may be 1 or 2 questions from the floor. No. Any question? Okay. Please.
My name is Marta Andre from Angola Embassy to Singapore. We have in our table essentially chief justice from Africa and Asia. So I would like to ask which are, in the viewpoint of your excellencies, the principal challenge for justice power or constitutional power in both continents, and how the relationships between Africa and Asia can help to face them. Thank you.
Thank you. Strict to answer. Justice, Honorable Justice Suhartoyo, or?
Okay, very difficult question. I think that the international meetings that we do this from time to time can help to reunion between us and strengthen the constitutional court of various countries. I think this way we can help and can help your question.
Yeah, I may just add to say that exchanges such as these that we are having here today are very important because they bring us together to compare the differences, the challenges, the strengths that we have as the continents, and also to increase our cooperation so that we tackle the challenges that we experience together. I'm sure there are other platforms at which we cooperate, and as I said in my speech, exchanges such as this one really strengthen that bond for us to tackle the challenges and to make sure that we are at the same level in terms of development, democracy, the rule of law, and all those principles enshrined in the various constitutions of our countries.
Thank you. Maybe the other speaker will answer. Please.
Just to add something more. Thank you. I think it's quite a difficult question, but it can help. It is in my opinion, I think when more closer the institution like ours, institution like judiciary, when more closer they are, when they have time to sit together and to discuss problem, even they are discussing problem regarding law, regarding constitution, it could help to bring or to make stronger the cooperation between states, between countries. Because when I am talking about it could be, or it could help, it's because I am thinking in the area of development of the country could be or could find the same direction. And I think this is only the way I can see how countries for different places in the world can be together and can help to develop each other. Thank you.
Maybe the other speaker will be answered.
Okay, can I additional? I mean similar, yeah. I think although we have a democracy system difference or constitutional system different, we have met like today. I think important to change or cooperate together to change handle cases or another. Therefore, I think with met inter countries which different system. I think positive, many positive cases, many positive taken. Maybe enough, Mr. Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Suartoyo. So there are 4 speakers which have answered and explained for your question. Yeah? Is that enough clear?
Yes, it is. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah. Maybe the other question? Okay. Maybe it's the last question, yeah? Yeah. Okay. Please.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I would like to hear from any of the speakers this afternoon, indeed from any colleagues, to what extent they have had experiences such as we have had in South Africa, where as the judiciary performs its function of upholding the rule of law and the supremacy of the Constitution, you find that members of the executive get upset and they attack the judiciary publicly. And I can just say that many years ago, we had members of the certain members of the executive calling judges of the Constitutional Court counter-revolutionaries. And we had a politician who said, Chief Justice is not God in the context of whatever he was saying. But recently in 2022, we had a member of the executive who wrote an article in which she basically insulted judges, especially black judges, including judges of the Constitutional Court and the Supreme Court and the High Court, saying that the way they think or decide matters, they are like puppets of their white masters. And that obviously was quite concerning. So in South Africa, we have had situations where the leader of the judiciary, the Chief Justice, has had to issue media statements in the past sometimes, but on the occasion of this particular one that I'm talking about, where judges were insulted, I had to call a media conference and respond on behalf of the judiciary after talking to heads of various courts, and we all agreed that I should respond on behalf of the judiciary. But of course, that also attracted some criticism. So I would be very interested in knowing whether that experience is just our own in South Africa and nobody else has such experiences, or if they do have, whether they ever respond by way of media statements or media briefings, or whether they just suffer in silence. Thank you.
Maybe one speaker will give a response. Okay, please, speaker from
Angola.
Angola.
Yeah, thank you.
Please, it's yours.
We don't have experience, the case with executive and judiciary. We have something similar, but with political parties. As you know, in Angola, Constitutional Court has the power to create and to dissolve the political party, and has also the power to give the last word about the candidates for the election. During this period, we receive, in fact, a lot of injury from them, from all the way, from newspaper, television, Facebook, all the way they are sending message and talking about good things of personal, professional issues about the judge. Yeah, with the government, no, I think there is no way. This, so unfortunately, I cannot share the same experience with you.
Chief Justice, this phenomenon is not unique to a particular jurisdiction. I don't know, maybe because we are neighbors or something, what happens in your jurisdiction tends to permeate through, to cross the borders and find itself in my country. So that phenomenon has reared its ugly head again recently in Namibia. The Supreme Court made a ruling that was not particularly pleasing, particularly not so much to the executive. If it was not to them, they did not express themselves, but particularly to the members of the legislature, where they have even gone as far as to pass what they call a private members' bill to reverse the decision, purportedly to reverse the decision of the Supreme Court. So, but that ruling gave rise to all manner of attacks on the Supreme Court in particular. There were court names. The Chief Justice was, in fact, calls were made for the Chief Justice to be disciplined. And yeah, but it's an ongoing situation. It's ongoing. But in the past, we have had similar incidences. And what we did, we as a collective, I don't know if it was the right thing to do, I decided that my colleagues and I were going to see the president as the head of state and as head of the executive. At that point in time, the attack came from a member of the executive. And we went to see him en masse. And we made it very clear that we were not pleased and that he should do something. What the president then subsequently did was to issue a public statement. And he said, I do not expect any member of my cabinet to attack the judiciary. And should that happen, that member will bear personal responsibility. And so that's what happened. Nothing happened since then, except now for this latest incident that I talked about. That one is an ongoing situation, so we will see how far it will go. But it's certainly, I'm sure, it's an experience that many of my colleagues here have experienced. But only speaking for Namibia, certainly something, it doesn't happen that often, but regrettably, something that has come up recently.
Thank you. As I have mentioned before discussion, that the program session we held to be ended at 5 o'clock, but now we have expensed 25 minutes past 5 o'clock. Thank you for the participants who have participated in the discussion. Also, I think the speakers who have provided responses to questions and comments from the floors. With due respect, I can no longer provide opportunities for discussion and must end this session in order to adjust to the program. As an appreciation to the speakers and to the forum, please let's give a big round of applause. As chair for this session, I will not draw any conclusion. I will give as much space as possible for the youth to wonder and keep finding answers. Hopefully, this session can be inspired and benefited to us all. I handed it back to the host of the preparation of the closing ceremony. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. Another round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you very much indeed to our esteemed speakers for such an illuminating sessions, giving us so many insights and broadening our horizon. Ladies and gentlemen, we shall take a very quick break to give some time to our organizing committee to set Apologies, Excellencies, for the technical difficulties. Once again, we thank our esteemed speakers and chairperson for the sessions. May we kindly invite all of our Excellencies, Your Honors, to return to your previous seat. Thank you very much indeed. And as I mentioned earlier, ladies and gentlemen, we will take a very, very quick break to give some time to our organizing committee to set things up for the closing ceremony. So we will reconvene in just a few minutes for the closing ceremony. Please bear with us. Thank you very much.
Dear world, how are you today? Dear democracy, how are you today? Dear world, how are you today? Dear democracy, how are you today? Every day, people are busy with their own life. Today, we gather in Jakarta, the capital city of Indonesia, center for economic growth, social development, and acculturations of diverse culture. Located in the heart of Jakarta, the Constitutional Court of the Republic of Indonesia, carrying out its duties as the guardian of the Constitution, the guardian of democracy, the protector of human rights, and the guardian of state ideology, which is Pancasila. Even though it only has an office in Jakarta, with the support of technological advances, the court continues to effectively carrying out its functions for 280 million Indonesians spread across more than 17,000 islands, with hundreds of regional languages and ethnic groups. Now, with a number of experiences that we have, let's discuss. Let's exchange experiences on promoting the rule of law, safeguarding democracy and human rights for a better world. Dear world, how are you today? Dear democracy, how are you today? Every day, people are busy with their own life. Today, we gather in Jakarta, the capital city of Indonesia, center for economic growth, social development, and acculturations of diverse culture. Located in the heart of Jakarta, the Constitutional Court of the Republic of Indonesia, carrying out its duties as the guardian of the Constitution, the guardian of democracy, the protector of human rights, and the guardian of state ideology, which is Pancasila. Even though it only has an office in Jakarta, with the support of technological advances, the court continues to effectively carrying out its functions for 280 million Indonesians spread across more than 17,000 islands with hundreds of regional languages and ethnic groups. Now, with the number of experiences that we have,
Once again, requesting delegates and participants to please be seated. Thank you. Excellencies, delegates, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for still being with us for the International Chief Justice Forum here in Jakarta, Indonesia. We have now embarked upon the closing ceremony. It is now my distinct honor to invite the closing remarks from Chief Justice of the Constitutional Court of the Republic of Indonesia. Please give a warm welcome to His Excellency Anwar Usman.
Assalamualaikum.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon, and may peace be upon all of us. Your Excellency, the head of delegations and members of the delegations of Constitutional Court and equivalent institutions, Your Honors, the constitutional justices of the Constitutional Court of the Republic of Indonesia, all of the stakeholders of the Constitutional Court of the Republic of Indonesia, all of the discussion participants, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Let us extend our gratitude always to God the Almighty, because only by His mercy, grace, guidance, we can attend the closing ceremony of the International Chief Justice Forum in good health. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, today, the 10th of August, 2023, is a historical day for the Constitutional Court of the Republic of Indonesia. Today, we have witnessed how the power of collaboration and a shared commitment to uphold the rule of law and justice in the world that we are living in. Various activities and works that we have undertaken today are the evidence of our strong motivation and togetherness of the heads of the presidents and the chiefs of the judicial institutions from various regions who today gather in a solid, professional, and supportive community. All of us present today have witnessed how the agenda of this meeting has served as essential platform to strengthen democratic values and to uphold the rule of law. Furthermore, the involvement of participants in in-depth discussions while exchanging ideas and insights has added invaluable knowledge and experience for all of us. This program will increase or will add to the stock of the court knowledge and experience, which will be useful for the development of our institutional capacity of each delegation in realizing a judicial institution with the title of Court of Excellence. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, our discussion today has actually given birth to ideas that have already that can inspire one another. The practice in one country, especially practice that can strengthen the value of democracy, should be taken as lesson learned to face the future challenges. Today, due to the disruption of technology and the problems in our constitutions, it is clear that it is the responsibility of all of us to work hard to ensure that we have independent, impartial, and just judiciary. This forum has tangibly strengthened the solidarity among the chief justices of constitutional courts and equivalent institutions and provide positive values to the optimism of our future in the framework of accountability and brotherhood, the court brotherhood. After we leave this forum and return to our respective countries, please don't forget to bring home the spirit of friendship that has been established through this activity. Let us foster a spirit of togetherness, to continue to share experience, to collaborate across border, and to promote all of the agendas that we have discussed in this forum. Please remember that the challenges that we are facing in the future will be enormous, but the potentials and the opportunities for improvement in the future will be greater. Our fight in materializing constitutional justice is still long and winding, but the motivation, commitment, and the energy to uphold law and justice will never die. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I would like to extend my deepest appreciation and gratitude to all of the participants for your unwavering participation, dedication, and commitment to the rule of law and justice. The relationships that we forge in this activity are bridges that cross time and space to connect us in a shared mission that transcends national borders. Let us move forward with a new spirit equipped with knowledge that the search for justice will also know no territorial boundaries. In closing, I would like to remind all of us with a wonderful quote from Nelson Mandela. Being free is not just letting go of one's chains and shackles, but living in a way that respects and increases the freedom of others. This quote is a reminder to all of us to continue to strive for respect for democratic values and human rights, because only with collective efforts we will have a world that is more beautiful and just for everyone. This is all that I would like to share with you. I would like to apologize for any mistakes and shortcomings. Thank you, and may we meet again in other opportunities in our noble endeavor towards a more democratic and just world in the future. Billahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. Please kindly remain on stage for the final round of group photo. May we now kindly invite for the final round of group photos on stage, joining our Chief Justice. May we call upon heads of delegates of participating countries. May we call upon heads of delegates from Algeria, Angola, Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, Mongolia, Namibia, South Africa, Turkey, and the Kingdom of Thailand. Do join us on stage, please. And may we also call upon our honorable justices of the Constitutional Court of the Republic of Indonesia to also accompany our Chief Justice for the group photo. Thank you. Forum juga belum. Now that we have everyone in the group photo, Excellencies, all right, Excellencies, on the count of 3, front and center, please. On the count of 3, front and center, Excellencies, 1, 2, 3. One more time, the biggest smile, please. 1, 2, 3. Thank you very much. Can we give a big round of applause for our Excellencies, Chief Justices from all participating member states? Thank you very much. May we have the friendship pose, holding each other's hand, if we may, Justices. Right over left, please. Right over left. Your right hand over your left hand and holding each other's arms, if that's at all possible. A sign of friendship from all the participating members for the forum today. A friendship pose. There we have it. How delightful. Amazing. On the count of 3, Excellencies, if that's at all possible, to the master photographer at the center. 1, 2, 3. One more time. 1, 2, 3. Thank you very much indeed. And may we now invite everyone, all of our delegates, to please join us on stage for the final round of group photo. Session 2 today for the group photos. Everyone right there on the table, kindly please rise and join us up on stage for the group photo, please. We will have 2 rows of delegates. Kindly place yourself so we can see your face in the group photo. All right, for the formal pose, delegates, ladies and gentlemen, make sure that you are not blocked by your colleague next to you. Make sure that we have a tidy line, please, especially in the second row. On the count of 3, formal pose, front and center to our master of photographer. 1, 2, 3. One more time. 1, 2, 3. There you have it. And then there's a special request from our photographer as well for a very quick short video for everyone to please say hi upon the instructions of our master photographer. Shall we start? Silakan, Mas. So wave your hand, excellencies and delegates, and say hi. Hi. All right. This is it. We've come to the end of the International Chief Justice Forum here in Jakarta, Indonesia. Let's give the biggest final round of applause for our excellencies and delegates joining us on this delightful day. We look forward to the gala dinner later on to see you. Thank you very much, delegates, excellencies. This has been a pleasure. See you later at the gala dinner.